Have you ever found a background or a video that you love, but the text just doesn't stand out? You could put your text in a shape, but that kind of takes away from the look. Instead, you can use background effects to alter your background where your text is going to appear. You can also use background effects to adjust live video inside ProPresenter. These are easy to use and can help you create some super creative and dynamic looks without needing to jump into a video editor. So here's a great example of a really cool looking motion background, but when we put text over top of it, it's pretty hard to see. So let's use background effects to make our text much easier to see. So we're going to start by creating a theme that we can apply to our slides. So we're going to go to Theme in the main toolbar, and I'm going to add a new theme, and we're going to call this Background Effects. Now in the theme editor, the first thing that we want to do is name what this theme is going to be, and I'm going to call this one my blur effect. So we're just going to call this one blur. And now we can start adjusting our text to format it the way we want it to be. I'm going to make my text look the same, which was set to Avenir Next, Demi Bold, and it was set to like 80-point font. We'll set the capitalization to be all caps, and a lot of times when you use all caps, it's a good idea to add a little bit of character spacing to make it easier to read, so I'll set that to about 6. So you'll see our text is a little easier to read with that. So now we have our text looking the way we want. I'm going to make this text box a little smaller because we're only going to do maybe 2 or 3 lines of text, and I'll put this back in the center, and now we can add our background effect. We're going to add this directly to this text box. So we're going to go to the shape settings for our text box, and we're going to go down to fill. This is going to default to add in a filled color, but we can change that from a color to a background effect, and we can choose background blur. Now you'll see a few settings here. First, we have an option for saturation and for blur. Currently, saturation is set to 0, which means it's not going to add any saturation or remove any. It's just going to leave it the same. And then blur defaults to a value of 50%. I'm just going to turn that all the way up to 100 to make it as blurry as possible. And then you'll notice that we have these placeholder lines filling this box saying that something is going to fill this box, and that something is right here, the fill of background effect, background blur. Now you can't see what these background effects look like yet because these are dynamic and adjust media on the layers below. ProPresenter has multiple layers. On the bottom you have the video input layer, then the media layer, slide layer, announcements layer, props, and messages. Background effects adjust the media and video input layers, which help you achieve these creative looks. So now let's apply our theme to a presentation. So let's go back to show, and then let's make sure to select our presentation, and then we can go to theme in the main toolbar, find background effects, and click on blur to apply that to the entire presentation. Now I'm not actually going to do that right now because I want to show us a before and after. So I'm just going to select one slide, go to theme, and click on blur to apply that theme just to the one slide. So we can see what this looks like before. So here's our background. Again, our text is hard to read over top of it. And now let's click on one with background effects, and you'll see our text is much, much easier to read. But you will notice that there's a hard line between our background effects and our background, which could be a really cool look for some media, but I want to make this a little bit more subtle, and we can do that by adding feathering. And so let's go back to More in the main toolbar, and let's go to Theme Editor to go back to the Theme Editor. I'm going to select our text box, and under the shape settings, we have an option for feathering. And this is going to help fade the edges of our text box and fade the edges of our effect into the background. So I'm going to set this in the 70s, and so you'll see it has a nice faded edge. And now we can go back to show and see what that looks like. So let's select another slide here. We'll apply our blur theme, which now has the faded edge on it, and let's see what this looks like. So here's our background, and again, text is hard to read without the background effects. Here's our first version that has kind of the hard edges to it, and now let's look at what it looks like with the feathered edges, and you'll see we can again see our text really easily, but it just kind of fades in the center there. And so our background looks less affected, and it's just easier to read the text. You don't notice the effect. Now there's a few other options we have for background effects, so let's go create a few more themes by going to the theme editor. So we're going to go to more in the main toolbar and go to theme editor. And the first thing I'm going to do is right click on this and say duplicate, and then let's select this and rename this one. And instead of a blur effect, we're going to do a black and white effect. And the way we're going to do it for this one's a little bit different. So I'm going to select my text box, and I'm going to actually get rid of my background effects and feathering so that this is just a text box. And instead, we're going to create another shape to put our background effect in. So I'm going to add a new shape, and I'm going to choose rectangle. And that's going to place this blue rectangle in the middle of the screen here. And let's start by rotating that 45 degrees to turn it into a diamond. I'm going to link my width and height properties, and I'm going to change these to like 800. And then we can move this into the center of my screen here and get that perfectly centered. And then let's just move it below our text by just dragging it below in the layer stack over here. So now we have this diamond shape underneath our text, and now we can apply a background effect to that diamond. So I'm going to go to my fill settings, and I'm going to change this to background effect. And we're going to choose background blur again, but this time we're going to turn blurring off, and then we're going to set our saturation all the way down to -100. So it's going to totally desaturate whatever is there and turn it into black and white. And let's do this one more time. So I'm going to duplicate this one, and let's rename this one to Invert to apply our last effect to. And for this one, let's select our shape, and we're going to go to our fill settings, choose background effect, and choose background invert. This doesn't have any options because it just inverts the color of whatever media is below there. And so let's go see what all of these look like. So let's go back to show, and let's apply a theme to this slide. And another way you can apply themes is by right-clicking on a slide, and we can go to themes, and then you can find background effects and choose black and white. And then for this one, we'll go to themes and background effects and choose invert. So now let's see what all of those look like. So let's click on our background, and let's see what that black and white one looks like. So now we have this kind of black and white diamond in the center. That looks kind of cool. And then our inverted look, that looks a little bit crazy, but it could work. And the best part is it might not look good with this media, but again, these are dynamic and work with any media. So if we pull up our media bin, we could go to another background like this one that's a lot brighter, and we could see that it's inverting and making a lot of this darker. And so that's a really cool look that makes it a little easier to see the text in. Or we could try this on maybe this one, and if we had black text on that slide instead of white, you could see how that would be a really unique look. We also could see like this one, when we use the black and white effect, that's a really cool look. We have this kind of dark diamond shape, and then we have our color on the outside. I really like how that looks. Now, if you start using these often with things like song lyrics, you may want to hide the placeholder lines to make it easier for your operator to see the text on your slides. And there's two different ways that you can easily do this. So the first way to hide these background effect shapes from our slide is by switching to Easy View. So in the bottom right corner here, you'll see this T icon, and this switches us to Easy View. Now we only see the text on the slides and no shapes or other elements, but they're all still there. So the operator, when they click on the background and click on our slides with our background effects, you'll see those on our output. They just won't see those in the slide thumbnails. Now, another way that we can do this is by utilizing audience looks. So let's see how we could set this up. So let's go to screens and go to edit looks. And the first thing we need to do is create a look preset so that we can use this during our presentations, but not all the time. And so let's add a new preset, and I'm going to name this one black and white. And what we're going to do is utilize a feature in looks that allows us to apply a theme in real time without actually needing to apply it directly to a slide. So if we click here, we can choose to find a theme, and it will apply it to any slides in the presentation layer. So I'm going to go to background effects, and I'm going to choose my black and white theme here. And that's all we need to do. We're just going to add that theme here, and then we can choose to use this black and white theme on different presentations. So we're going to go down to Fresh Wind, and I'm going to right click on my first slide, and I'm going to go to Add Action, Audience Look, and I'm going to choose black and white. When I click on this, it's going to change our current audience look from default, which we can see here, to black and white. And so let's see what happens. So I'm going to click on that. It's going to switch to black and white. And now it's applying that rectangle to all of our slides. And we can go through and you can see how in this view, we're just seeing our text, but on our screen, we're seeing that altered version without needing to see all those other shapes. Background effects open up so many creative ways for you to dynamically adjust your presentations and make your text stand out. Also, you can download a free theme that uses background effects at renewedvision.com/free.